Imagine standing on the battlefield of ancient Rome, surrounded by thousands of soldiers, and in front of you, towering warriors appear, wearing helmets crowned with feathers waving in the wind, commanding respect before the first blow is even struck. These feathers were not just decoration. They were symbols of glory, power, and authority, capable of changing the course of a war. But maybe you've never stopped to wonder why Roman soldiers wore these feathers, or how a simple crest could mean the difference between life and death, order and chaos. In this video, you'll uncover the real secret behind the feathers on Roman helmets. Together, we'll dive into a story of strategy, hierarchy, fear, and conquest, and understand how this striking detail helped shape one of the most powerful empires in history. But before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you are subscribed to our channel and take a moment to activate the notification bell so that you don't miss any of our videos packed with historical curiosities about ancient Rome. Are you ready to discover how a simple accessory on a helmet can reveal so much about the hierarchy and strength of an empire? The glory of Rome, the allure of helmets with feathers. Rome rose on the strength of its legions, and every soldier, from the humblest recruit to the most distinguished officer, knew that his equipment reflected the greatness of the eternal city. It is no wonder that Roman helmets with feathers became iconic items, projecting discipline and majesty wherever the army marched. The metallic shine of the helmet, combined with vibrant plumes, created a visual identity that symbolized the solidity of the empire. For Centurion Gaius Crispus, this adornment meant much more than mere ostentation. The horizontal crest on his helmet set him apart from other officers and common soldiers, allowing his troops to recognize him even during the most frantic battles. It served as a means of security, identification, and also as a reminder of his responsibility towards the legion. At the top of the command chain was General Tito Flávio, whose very presence was enough to ignite the morale of the troops. His crest, more imposing and elaborate, represented the pinnacle of Roman military glory. Every plume symbolized a victory, every strand of horsehair told a story of battle. And thus, even to those watching from a distance, it became clear. The empire valued not only courage, but also the manner in which that courage was presented. Do you want to know how these helmets helped each soldier distinguish their leaders amid the chaos of the battlefield? Army encounters, identification among the legends. The Roman battlefield was often chaotic, shouts, dust, flying spears, and colliding shields. Amid this scenario, recognizing the commanders was essential to maintain formation and prevent the collapse of the army. Roman soldiers trained tirelessly, but nothing replaced clear visual identification. Thus, the helmet crest became a beacon in the darkness of war. When Tribune Lélio Aurelius first appeared at the head of his cohort, many soldiers sighed with relief. Despite his youth, his helmet with a vertical crest clearly indicated his rank as a tribune. During an enemy onslaught, a quick glance upward was all it took to find him, signaling the way forward. The legion did not scatter because they knew exactly whom to obey. This practice of creating reference points was so valued that in certain more intense campaigns, the crests were even reinforced with wooden structures and materials in bold tones. From afar, one could see a mass of helmets with feathers flying in the wind, a symbol of unity and strength that made it abundantly clear. Here was the mighty Roman Empire, ready to defend its honor and expand its borders. And could it be that the position of the feathers also revealed who was in command and who was to follow orders? Hierarchy and power, how feathers emphasized authority. Within the legions, power was not an abstract concept. It was represented by unmistakable symbols. The arrangement of feathers on the Roman helmets communicated each soldier's rank. Centurions, like Gaius Crispus, used horizontal crests. Higher-ranking officers such as tribunes, as in the case of Lélio Aurelius, wore vertical crests, while generals had even more elaborate adornments, sometimes combining colors and textures. In these organized rows, every legionary knew exactly who the highest authority beside him was. This system allowed orders to be quickly understood and followed, ensuring that the legion's efficiency remained impeccable. In a close-quarters confrontation, knowing precisely when to advance or retreat could mean the difference between a glorious victory and an irreversible disaster. For General Tito Flávio, his plumes were a sign that he carried the fate of hundreds of men on his shoulders. He had the duty to lead, motivate, and protect every life under his command. However, Tito did not govern alone. The hierarchy worked like a perfectly tuned machine in which every part had its role and visual identity, unquestionably expressed by the helmet and its feathers. Now, imagine the effect of seeing hundreds of helmets with feathers approaching your territory. How would the enemies react? A vision of grandeur, psychological impact on the battlefield. It is not enough to be strong, one must also look strong. The Romans deeply understood this maxim. Seeing a legion advancing, with the sun reflecting off shields and the colorful crests on display, had a devastating psychological impact on the enemies. Many ancient peoples, upon witnessing such formations, already felt the weight of defeat even before the first sword was drawn. Centurion Gaius Crispus mentioned in his letters to his family that, more often than not, opponents trembled in fear, merely at the sound of the steady steps of the troops and the sight of those towering helmets with feathers swaying in the wind. Part of this was strategy. The military glory of Rome needed constant reaffirmation, and the imposing visual was the first blow, even before the army unsheathed its weapons. In this scenario, Roman soldiers felt almost invincible. The sense of belonging to something so grand and feared reinforced the morale of the troops, who fought with confidence. At the same time, this image cultivated international respect. Kings and tribal chiefs of other nations knew that taking a stand against Rome meant facing not just swords and spears, but an indomitable fighting spirit. And how did the Romans balance this practical use of helmets with feathers with moments of pomp and public celebration? Rituals and ceremonies, the ceremonial role of the helmets. Off the battlefield, the crests continued to take center stage. During triumphal parades, festivals, and religious rituals, Roman helmets were adorned with even more striking colors and accessories that emphasized the grandeur of the event. The horsehair, often dyed a vivid red, symbolized courage and, in some cases, even tributes to the protective gods of Rome. Imagine General Tito Flávio returning from a successful campaign at the far reaches of the empire, parading through Rome in a chariot with his troops in tow. The streets would be filled with people eager to witness the passage of these war heroes. The shine of the armor and the plumes atop the helmets formed a spectacle that fueled the pride of the populace and reinforced the image that Rome was invincible. Taking advantage of this moment, go ahead and leave your like on this video if you are enjoying learning about the details of Roman ceremonies and rituals. This way, we will continue bringing you stories as impactful as this one. In these rites, Tribune Lélio Aurelius was often impressed by the reverence of the crowd and even by the curiosity of young onlookers who would rush to touch the fringes of the plumes as if they were touching a piece of Roman history itself. The pomp reinforced not only military discipline but also the devotion that the people held for their warriors. At every celebration, helmets with feathers became living icons of victory and discipline. But do not think that Rome developed this idea on its own. What if other cultures had also influenced the Roman crests? The cultural factor, influences from ancient peoples, The Roman Empire spanned vast territories, encompassing countless cultures. Greeks, Etruscans, Gauls, and even peoples from the Middle East contributed to the formation of the Roman army through the exchange of techniques or the assimilation of customs. The use of head adornments, such as plumes and crests, was not exclusive to the Romans, but it was perfected by them in terms of organization and visual impact. Ancient peoples like the Celts and Parthians also ornamented their warriors to impress both enemies and allies. The Romans observed these cultures and incorporated elements that could be applied in an even more disciplined and strategic manner. Thus, the military glory of Rome expanded as it absorbed the best of foreign traditions and adapted them to its own needs. During a campaign against barbarian tribes, Centurion Gaius Crispus noticed how some tribes used animal skulls on their helmets in an attempt to instill terror. He reported to General Tito Flávio that although intimidating, these ornaments were of little practical use in battle. In contrast, Roman crests provided the same visual intensity, with the advantage of identifying ranks and unifying the legions around a common standard. Speaking of real soldiers and leaders, how about getting to know more about the lives and deeds of Gaius and Lélio, men who perfectly illustrate this tradition of the crests? Gaius and Lélio, stories of men who wear feathers. Gaius Crispus was not born in Rome. He was the son of a weapons craftsman in a recently annexed province of the empire. From an early age, he saw the gleam of swords and shields passing in front of his father's workshop and dreamed of wearing that ornate Roman helmet that fascinated him so much. Upon enlisting in the army, his leadership talent and battlefield courage quickly caught the attention of his superiors. Lélio Aurelius, on the other hand, came from a family with some influence. He received a privileged education in Rome, learning about philosophy and the management of military campaigns. The young tribune was passionate about strategy and saw in the vertical crest of his helmet a constant reminder of his duty to honor his family name and protect the homeland. Despite their different origins, both shared the battlefield under the command of General Tito Flávio. Their different, yet equally imposing crests were signs of two promising careers. Gaius and Lélio held great mutual respect, and the feathers on their helmets sealed this meeting of courage, intelligence, and loyalty. With each new campaign, the gleam of the crests reaffirmed that they would become legends in the history of the legions. But how did an experienced general like Tito Flávio lead all these diverse soldiers while maintaining unity and respect? Tito Flávio, the general who led Rome to victory. Tito Flávio had the gaze of one who had witnessed the harsh realities of war. Raised in the tradition of skillful generals and prudent statesmen, he rose through the ranks thanks to his feats on the battlefield and his adeptness at negotiating with enemies. His helmet was a spectacle in itself, red plumes intermingled with golden bands, representing not only his supreme rank, but also the numerous victories he had accumulated. He was a man of great presence. It was said that just by walking through the camp, he inspired the soldiers to prepare themselves even more diligently. To keep morale high, Tito valued direct contact with Gaius Crispus and Lélio Aurelius, understanding the importance of nurturing leaders within the army. He believed that a solid empire was built upon the foundations of competent and, above all, inspired officers. On one of his most celebrated campaigns, he faced fierce tribes in mountainous territories where the climate and terrain complicated every movement. Even so, thanks to the discipline of the legions and the visual identification provided by the crests, the soldiers reorganized even in the most critical moments. Tito Flávio's fame spread throughout Rome and beyond, reinforcing the idea that the grandeur of the Roman Empire was unshakable under his leadership. After so many victories, the question arises: did the use of helmets with feathers persist until the very end of the empire? Legacy, the end of an era or the heritage of the helmets. History shows us that, over the centuries, the Roman Empire underwent profound transformations. New cultural influences, economic crises, and the constant pressure of barbarian invasions forced changes in military style. Although helmets with feathers remained in use for a long time, gradually other priorities emerged on the battlefield, such as the need for more practical armor to face deadlier spears or new types of bows. However, the essence of this symbol did not disappear. The idea of a distinctive crest that differentiates leaders and creates a striking visual impact was transmitted to other European armies over the course of history. Even today, traces of this influence can be seen in military parades or in forces that maintain ornamental gear for ceremonial purposes, paying direct or indirect homage to the Roman legacy. In ancient records, we see that many generals and officers, upon retiring from their careers, kept their helmets as relics of honor. For figures like Gaius Crispus and Lélio Aurelius, these pieces were not merely metal and feathers, but a living part of their trajectories, trophies of battles, victories, and sacrifices that shaped the destiny of the greatest empire the ancient world ever knew. And after all that, what can we learn from these stories and traditions that have spanned so much time and influenced so many people? Final reflection. What do we learn from history? The crests on Roman helmets go far beyond mere military adornments. They are testaments to the discipline, organization, and victorious spirit of a people who set the course for Western civilization. Understanding the motivations behind this symbol is like opening a window to the past. Realizing how every detail, even the smallest, can have a massive impact on the cohesion of an army and the building of an empire. Whether it is the horizontal crest of a brave centurion, the vertical crest of an ambitious tribune, or the majestic plumage of a general, we realize that these details were the threads that wove the story of Rome, a story of glory, power, and constant challenges. Looking back and uncovering these nuances reveals how the visual identity represented by the helmet adornments reflected important values: honor, loyalty, and unwavering discipline. Every time we see a reference to these helmets in films, books, or museums, it is impossible not to feel a shiver imagining how those flesh and blood men faced all kinds of adversity to etch their names into immortality. And so we come to the end of this journey, filled with courage and lessons. But the story does not end here. There is still much to be discovered, and each discovery makes ancient Rome even more fascinating. The strength of the Roman Empire remains alive in our memories, and helmets with feathers are one of the most impressive emblems of this heritage. From their power of intimidation in combat to their role in triumphant celebrations, they symbolize an era of conquests that changed the course of humanity. And you, what did you think of this journey through the battlefields and sacred rituals of Rome? If you enjoyed this journey back in time and want more fascinating stories, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and share this video with your friends. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video about ancient Rome and the Empire.